Hey, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a nice little break for lunch and a chance to stretch your legs. Hard to believe we only have a few more hours left of the conference, and I'm going to turn it over to Brenda for introductions.
Hi, I'm Brenda Warren. I'm on the board for IDA-NNEA. I'm a new transplanted to Vermont. I lived in Wisconsin for 33 years, so still advocating for reading here as I did in Wisconsin. Today, I'm excited to introduce two highly qualified and experienced presenters who will present about writing and self-regulation. Dr. Leslie Laud teaches graduate courses at Bank Street College of Education in New York City. She consults widely on using evidence-based practices within a writer's workshop model. She holds an MA in special education and a doctorate in curriculum and teaching, both from Teachers College and Columbia University. While there, Dr. Laud studied data-informed instructional models, participated in advanced writers' workshop institutes, and received certification as a school administrator with a focus on school change. She has taught in both special and general education, worked as a school principal, and taught at Teachers College. In addition to teaching courses at Bank Street College, Dr. Laud also consults on writing nationally and internationally, using a blended model to help schools strengthen writing instruction. She also publishes regularly in peer-reviewed journals and presents frequently at conferences. Heidi Zollman has developed a strong background in literacy through working as an elementary classroom teacher, reading and writing specialist, reading first coach, OG scholar, and is currently the curriculum director in the Rochester School Department in Rochester, New Hampshire. Heidi is a national letters, DIBELS, and SRSD trainer, and her passion for supporting literacy and all learners can be seen in the work she has done to raise awareness of dyslexia in the K-16 arena. Heidi actively consults with other school districts across the nation, specializing in literacy, data teams, and the change process, and serves on the IDA-NNEA board as the conference chair. Welcome, Heidi and Dr. Laud. We're excited to learn from you today about writing and self-regulation.
Thank you so much, Brenda. And Leslie, you can go ahead and share our screen. And welcome back from lunch, everyone. We are excited to be here today. I'm so honored to be here with Dr. Leslie Laud. She is an amazing person, an amazing researcher, and I think one of the things that I love about SRSD is that it is amazing to bring the research to the teachers. So this has been just an amazing experience. All right, so I am going to have everybody go ahead and you had a little quote there, and we are going to, I love this quote right here. When I am writing, I am trying to find out who I am, who we are, what we're capable of. I love it for what it does for us, how it allows us to explain the pain and the glory and nuances, delicacies in existence. So I just love this quote, and we are going to continue with SRSD. All right, so I want to welcome you again. So welcome to Think. We're going to talk about Think SRSD. This is an introduction. This is typically a two-day professional development, but you're going to get the 1 hour plan today in our conference. So this is an overview. We're going to share the story of our journey from this with working with over 1,000 teachers and making Think SRSD easy for them to learn and use, then coaching them to become experts with using it. Teachers learn how to support our students in becoming capable, skilled users of writing so that students can use writing to write, to learn, and write to compel. So these are all things that we learned earlier today, and just ending on Mitchell Brookins, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into this. SRSD stands for Self-Regulated Strategy Development. In the combination with the work of Think SRSD and Dr. Charlie Haynes, who we heard from yesterday. So some of his work is included in this. Somebody just said part of the screen is cut off. And I'm not sure why that would be. So Leslie, you are sharing. How does that? I'll let Leslie work on that a little bit. Somebody just said too big. I know it's in Google. The Whova platform is cutting it off, somebody said. And maybe one of our tech people can take a look at that. But I don't know if it's because it's in Google Slides. I don't see why the problem would be Google Slides. Okay. Andrea just gave a workaround. You can open, put it in presentation mode. Okay. All right, I'm gonna keep going a little bit, and Leslie, you are working on that, and I think Andrea has like a workaround. Perhaps. See if that's any better. Is it better now?
I'm not sure if the most of you are seeing it too, but Leslie, you can see the top of your like it says Google Docs with all of your bookmarks. So if you close out of it and then reshare your screen as either like the presentation mode or just I'm trying to think, you would click like to show your desktop and share it that way. You could show it in the large mode. But on our end here on Zoom, it looks okay. I think part of it, more of the issues on Whova right now.
Okay, someone just said looks okay on Zoom. So I think perhaps people could go copy the link from Whova. Yes. Okay, good. So someone just said we also have access to the slides, so we should be okay. I think we're going to continue. So SRSD stands for Self-Regulated Strategy Development. So you actually heard Joan Sedita talking about this, and she touched on it a little bit, and we're going to dig. The people watching on Whova say it's okay. So perfect. We're going to keep going. All right, so I'm going to continue here. So Think SRSD is the true science of writing because of the magnitude of the research that backs it. I'll quickly touch on the research, then go over what Think SRSD is. So we have a little problem here in our nation. Teachers are not prepared to teach writing, right? So I know that when I started in college, I think I had one class in writing, and it started with handwriting, which is all important. That is one important piece. However, I was never taught how to teach writing. So we know that teachers are not adequately prepared to teach writing. Teachers become deeply frustrated because they have not been adequately prepared, and we're trying to figure it out on the fly in our classrooms, in our professional development. And teachers are not the only ones struggling here. Our kids are struggling. We know that 24% of our nation's children know how to write. So when we think of the NNEA assessment, 24% of our kids. So think about the kids who cannot write. That is just not okay. And we're actually building on what Mitchell Brookins just said. It is not okay. We cannot be complacent with this. So 24% is a number that we need to think about. So let's talk a little bit about, we're going down the road. What is the roadblock for why don't kids know how to write? What is getting in the way of us being able to teach our students how to write effectively and empower our students to write more easily? Many schools across the nation are not aware of and do not use writing instruction that has been proven to work. But Leslie and I are here to talk about good news. So this is awesome. We do have good news, actually. The biggest roadblock is that teachers have not been adequately prepared in undergrad, in-service, professional development to know what are the most powerful ways to teach writing. The good news is we know what works. We have figured it out in the research world, and efforts have been made to bring it to you. And more, it's simple and it's easy to learn. And what is that? That is the self-regulated strategy development that we just talked about. It really works. Think SRSD gives a comprehensive framework and enables you to more easily teach writing, help students to become more independent, taking themselves through the writing process. So we are so excited to share this with you today.
Okay, good morning as well. Yes, I'm so excited to share these strategies with you. Everything that you hear today, you will be getting the slides, and we also have a website, thinksrsd.com. I can put that into chat, where everything is free. We have been federally funded to help bring these evidence-based practices to schools. We ran the largest federally funded research grant ever in the history of writing last year. And we learned so much and we created so much, and it is all free to use. So we will be sharing with you what we've learned from a decade of working to bring this approach to classrooms. And then Think SRSD specializes in adapting this to make it real in schools. So it is a 40-year-old approach. And for 40 years, it sat on a shelf. And then about 10 years ago, the federal government began funding our research and funding our work to actually adapt it, change it, and make it more teacher friendly. So that is what we do at Think SRSD. We bring this work to schools and we give it all away for free. So the website is in chat and you can have a look at that. But I do want to drive home this really important point. There are 4 levels of ESSA. The bottom level is there's a rationale, an idea, a reason, it's structured, why we should do something. Promising, there may have been a related research study. Moderate, there was a quasi-research study. Strong, there was a randomized controlled trial. We had this last year. We had a little disruption, but in the end of the 7 schools that completed all of the professional development, we had significant gains in the Think SRSD schools. And so this approach is different in that it has so much research on it, 40 years of research on the general approach. And then last year we confirmed that we are able at Think SRSD to bring this to schools. We had this informal data. So whenever you're looking at a new program, I can't encourage you enough to go visit a school and see how this approach is working. What are they doing? Because evidence-based practices are not enough. We need to have practices that are flexible enough and can be adapted. And we have figured out how to adapt SRSD to take it off the dusty shelf and bring it alive in schools. This is one of our schools in Worcester, Massachusetts, where they began in the 50s. They got up to the 70s in proficiency, and then they took on Think SRSD, and they went all the way up to 87% proficient. This is another district that just went up yet another 4 points. I haven't updated the slide, but they began in 2013 at about 40% proficient. Every year they kept improving and kept working with us and distilling and changing and adapting the model to make it stronger. And now they're at in the high 70s. So they've doubled proficiency. No change in students, very little change in teachers. In some of the schools, you have the exact same teachers. So can we change? Can we get better? A resounding yes. When we change instruction, outcomes change for children. This is a district in Weymouth, Massachusetts that took on Think SRSD, saw really strong gains, continued them, and then went back to balanced literacy. Big lesson learned. We have to maintain the structured literacy. We have to keep the practices going that we've seen work. Okay, I'm now going to share with you what it is that got these gains, what it is that led to the self-directed and skilled writers that we're now seeing in our schools. There are 3 pillars. The first pillar is we teach the writing process. And decades of research, if there's one thing all of the research in the writing world agrees on and converges, that we need to teach the writing process. I'm sure Charlie Haynes spoke about that, and I'm sure Joan Sedita spoke about it. She does excellent work with teaching the writing process as well. And in this model of the writing process, we have power, plan, organize, write, edit, revise. It looks simple, but when we center all of our instruction around teaching students how to do each piece of this, that is when we see the gains. If you look at the What Works Clearinghouse free, totally free, 92-page guide on how to teach writing in a structured way with evidence-based practices, the highest, strongest recommendation is to teach strategies. And by strategies, we mean power. Power is a strategy that students will use to take themselves through the writing process independently. Then we teach a toolkit, a light, simple set of tools, very easy to teach, easy to remember, for doing each step in the writing process. And I encourage you, if you're taking notes, please bring your students through the writing process weekly. Sometimes it takes a little over a week, but at least each week, students should be writing using the writing process in response to rich texts, in addition to other writing that you do. And then the third level, Be Still My Beating Heart. This is my favorite area, and this is the discrete skill building. I am the parent of a child with dyslexia, and I've worked with students with learning disabilities for all of my career. And the roughest thing is when a child can tell you brilliant, amazing ideas, but then can't get them into writing. All those barriers, run-on, spelling, fragments that get in the way. So you've got your brilliant ideas, you can talk about them, you can share them with me when you're discussing, but then picking up a pen and actually being able to translate all that richness is where we see the breakdown. And so I have been thinking for 40 years so deeply, like many of you who've taught for a long time, or those of you who are starting, who are trying to figure out how do we get clear syntax. Written syntax is different from spoken. How do we teach that? And what we found over the decades is that isolated grammar lessons, even grammar, even if it's about what you're teaching, but it's separated from using the writing process, does not work. So what we want students to be doing is practicing grammar in the context of the real world writing that they're doing. And that is what leads to self-regulated, independent students who can guide themselves through the writing process, having the strategies, but also the discrete skill building embedded in their work. I want to be really clear about this. This is not writer's workshop. That is not what I'm talking about. This is very different. It is very teacher-directed, skill-driven, systematic, explicit, a lot of deliberate practice. Heidi will go into the details of how we do this, but it is a paradigmatic shift. It is not writer's workshop, but it is not just practicing writing. It is bringing together practicing writing with explicit direct skill instruction. It's a new way of thinking and a new model that you'll see more of. Okay, so how does this work? What you just saw here, this is the what. What are we teaching? And now how? How do you do this in your classroom? What can you take away that you can use tomorrow? First, we absolutely need rigorous, high quality, challenging texts. If you work out of an HQIM already, then great, you're already well on your way. By HQIM, I mean high quality instructional materials. It is critical to have a rich, strong curriculum. If you're working within a curriculum or you're selecting your own books, go for rigor. If you don't have enough time to teach all the text that week, go for the higher level and teach them in this process. This process is really about bringing up oral language so that students have that rich fount of oral language when they then later go to write. Then this process also includes exemplars, having students see peer written essays. I used to do this a couple of times a year. I didn't realize I had to do it every single week. And that was the big game changer. Having students look over peer writing at least every week. Composing together, scoring peer writing, analyzing it for how did you use transitions. But we need to really ground writing instruction in peer exemplars, which we read and analyze. Then model and practice. And in the younger grades, model, model, model. We're going to we're going to introduce key strategies: power, plan, organize, write, edit, revise. Students will write power at the top of their paper every time they write, and then they are in charge. They're guiding themselves through the writing process. Then they organize with something called TIDE. We have motions to make it really fun in the younger grades. And TIDE is very simply topic or tell what you believe. It works for opinion or information. T, topic or tell what you believe. And we color code it green. And then the I is important evidence. And that would be yellow. And then the D is my favorite part about TIDE. And that is detailed examination. Finally, the E is end. The reason why the detailed examination is my favorite part is because that's where your analytic higher order thinking is happening. So we are very much a marriage of skills and rudimentary basic remedial work, yes, and at the same time fitting in that higher order. So we model and practice, we do collaborative writes, interactive writing. We're doing it every day, most days of the week. If you remember the old interactive writing, it was not as structured. When people tell me they know interactive writing, I say, great, can you add power? Yes, I can do that. And when you plan, can you add TIDE and a language box? Yes, I can do that. Now we're bringing in the structure that interactive writing lacked. So we are a new breed, a new world. We are taking some of what was effective in the past, but really turbocharging it with a lot more structure, explicit and direct strategies. Finally, the last part is the evaluation. Students will self-score their writing, not a couple of times a year, but every week. And you'll score together as a class so that you can teach students how to score. You'll put up a piece of student writing, a volunteer from the class, and then you'll put up a scale and you'll talk about how to score. And that is a really important reflective piece. In the younger grades, we just use a little scoring rocket and the children draw it, but there should always be that plan, do, reflect. And then this becomes the cycle. The more of these cycles you take your students through, the more independent they become. And believe me, you want to get them to independence. It is just so fun, empowering, and exciting when your students know what to do. They know how to pick up a pen. They know what to do to get started. They feel joyful and empowered. That is what I hear most often. And that was what we heard universally from all the classes that we're implementing during our research study, that the kids knew what to do and felt really excited about writing. Here's a zoom in. You will get a picture of this, but this is all the steps that the students are working through in a given week. And you can layer in the steps as the students are ready, but here is where we weave in language work in a language box in the middle panel. We weave in sentence, instruction, and practice in the gist before they begin writing, and then in sentence slams, when they go from their TIDE planner over to their writing, we say pause, we're going to do some sentence slams. Here are examples from younger grades. all the way down to kindergarten. And our kindergarten teachers are the most on fire because they felt like in the simple view of reading, they're getting phonics. We as a nation are getting better about how to teach phonics. And now this gives them a way to teach the oral language. So you're doing your phonics, your letter, you're doing all of that instruction. At the same time, every day you're doing some guided writing where you're writing in front of the class, but the kids are contributing and you're building the oral language.
Okay, so we have given you a lot of information, and I apologize for the slow start with the technology, but we're just going to take a minute here and put in the chat. And I do see some questions. So Leslie, if you would like to look in the chat. But so far, what do you notice? What do you wonder? We'd love to see your chat. And we have an amazing team that's looking at that as well. But we'll take a look at the chat. We have some people in New Hampshire that are doing this, where you can see in action. In my district in Rochester, we trained K-12 teachers a couple of years ago, and just getting back into it. I love the connections we're making. And I think that we will, talk more about where you can get more training. We can show the website, Leslie, and things like that as we move along. And Leslie's doing a great job answering those questions. Perfect. And when we are ready, we're going to go back to that roadmap. All right, so do you all like to ride a bike on a nice day like today in New England? We're going to take a little road trip, right? So like think of this map as a road trip. So this is the power cycle. We will take you on the power cycle bike tour of the roadmap for teaching writing. We are going to make stops at the critical elements of this approach. This usually is a 2-day course, just a reminder, but we're getting the 1-hour simplified session. The first stop in our journey will be to look at the reading that we do before students begin the actual responding and writing. So Mitchell hit on this, we're hitting on this again. Robust text. So the students are reading robust text. That's the first stop in our journey. We teach students how to pause, read carefully, write a summary statement to ensure deep, close reading. The benefits of reading closely is that it builds enjoyment and deep, interesting thinking that surprises us. With Think SRSD, you link to your content learning. So any program that you're using, any novels that you're using, science, social studies, even in math, we've incorporated this into math in our district. You use your text. There are a lot of samples that we can share with you, but you use your own text. The next thing that you do is we embed sentence instruction right from day one. Charlie Haynes talked about this. Many of our presenters over the last few days have talked about this. Our teachers report the strongest gains at the sentence level with SRSD. You would have students write a summary statement or a gist, we call it, using a prompting question words. A who, did what, when, where, why, what happened. There's a lot of research on the gist, and they are learning how to create sentences and how to understand sentences through the gist work. This builds their understanding of components of a sentence, so we know the importance of the sentence work. This is what teachers might post in their room. So we're showing you all very simple graphic organizers, things to post in your room. Teachers post this chart and review it every time they read any text or even excerpts. Students become experts in writing short summary statements, which helps both their reading comprehension and sentence skills. So this could be done in 5 to 10 minutes a day, right? Leslie and I talked about this the other day. Some teachers love this so much and they're spending 30 minutes. We don't need to spend 30 minutes. We just need to spend 5 to 10 minutes. This is in a 5th grade classroom. The teacher uses these magnets for each part of speech, and then the teacher takes the magnets and can move them around for sentence variety. So again, these are all simple tools that you can use in your classroom. Here you see students doing structured practice. Note the boxes they are using. These are very important. So the kids don't necessarily need to know noun, verb, all the parts of a sentence, but they do need to separate those in boxes so they can be sure they have those key kernel parts that we've heard about over the day today. So these are younger students. And then we get into the youngest students, our oral gists. So this is amazing. We hear from kindergarten teachers that students are writing more variety in their sentences, longer sentences, and they are just very excited about the gist in kindergarten, so they can start with that oral language. And I'm going to have Leslie take over and acknowledge our Dr. Charlie Haynes.
If you were lucky enough to hear Dr. Charlie Haynes yesterday, this is his book. If they didn't put it into chat, I highly recommend it. It's a gem for the sentence. There you go. And here are some students using strategies from his book. If you can ever hear him speak, he is masterful. All right, so back to the power cycle. We're enjoying our bike ride on this warm day, and we're now going to go to the next stop in the journey, which is exemplars. And as I shared earlier, exemplars can drive your writing instruction. Students should be looking at them nearly daily. And this is an example of an exemplar. You would have students read a text and then write in response to it. At first, that whole idea shook my world. I was trained by Lucy Calkins, and I was trained in personal narrative, and I liked my personal narratives every day, all year long, K to 12. And this was a big mind shift for me. The idea, it felt stilted at first to be writing in response to text. Now there's no looking back, because what sold me was what a great equalizer it is when your students are writing in response to text rather than producing personal narratives. There is a place for personal narratives, but when they're writing in response to texts, they now have the language that they can work off of, and they are learning academic syntax, which is very different from spoken syntax. And our personal narratives would be flowing from spoken sentence level structures. But when you're writing in response to a text you've just read and you're analyzing it, you're going to be picking up that longer, more complex syntax, and we need students to have both. So they will be writing in response to what they've read, and they will be analyzing it and pulling it apart. And this is a treasure hunt that goes on all year. You start with the biggest layer, like Heidi had held up before, these wonderful highlighters. We start by highlighting the text structure so that we can see where we're going, what it is big picture that we're going to be producing, an idea, evidence to back up that idea, or further facts, and then analysis of those, and then some kind of wrap up. And that is, we call it Tide. And if you're looking for something to take away tomorrow, the next time that you assign a paragraph, you can simply put Tide up on the board and remind your students that when you write a paragraph, it has the parts of Tide. It can have many IDs in the middle. It can have 3 IDs, 2 IDs. You can break it up and have a tied essay with little tied paragraphs inside the essay. It's a very fluid tool. I used to use Oreo, Race. What sold me on Tide was two things: how flexible. I didn't have to keep teaching new mnemonics for all different kinds of writing. Tide worked for everything. But what really sold me on Tide was the D, and this idea of detailed examination or detailed analysis. Then we go back in, we look for transition words, we look for conjunctions. But as Heidi said earlier, keep the focus on the Tide writing and the text structure. Recent research has found that going in at the sentence level is not producing any gains in overall writing quality. That the work at the syntax level has to be happening at the same time that we're working at the genre level. So that's new learning for our field. Sentences are important, they're getting their day in the sun, but we really need to think about what SRSD and all the research has found, that working at the genre level of Tide every day is really important. Now you're thinking, but their sentences are no good and they're producing tides. Short tides. Charlie calls it micro discourse, and that is 2 or 3 sentences strung together, but we really need them focused on ideas, not on just a sentence, because the ideas are where our brain is growing, and we need to be teaching the two together. So 3 to 4 sentences together, you're all set, and that still would be Tide. Heading into a classroom now, we're walking into a school, pausing, putting our bike down for a moment and walking up the steps into a building. Here are some students who are color coding for Tide. And they've already been taught Tide, but now they're looking at a new kind of writing, point of view. And they haven't used Tide to structure point of view writing. So now they're looking at an exemplar. How do I tackle point of view? Field trip down the hall to the younger classes, the kindergarten wing. Here are some kindergartners highlighting a piece about a topic that they've just studied, and they're all coming up at different times with a marker and color coding the different parts for Tide. And they have songs and chants, and writing is just a favorite time of day. Anchor charts, we don't sell them and never will. We encourage you to make your own anchor charts. Don't go to Teachers Pay Teachers. Make your own and make them in front of your kids. You don't need to stay after or go down to the art room. You can if you like doing that, but you can build an anchor chart right in front of your kids. Kids, we're going to learn something called POW. Can everybody give me a good POW? All right. I'm now going to write POW right in front of you, and we are going to plan where we pick our ideas, organize, write, and if we have time, we edit and revise too. So you can put POW right up on your anchor chart, or power in the upper grades. And then when we organize, we use Tide. And then you can see over to the side there, we've written out Tide. And then that becomes your anchor for the entire year. Every time we're reading, getting ready to write, we go through the steps of POW. P is where we pick our ideas while we're reading and discussing. A lot happens in that first P. Then we organize with Tide, and then write, and then edit and revise. In the younger grades, we just do POW. Moving on to our next stop in our Google tour, to model and practice. And now we will have students write power on their own paper, or we write it on the smartboard in front of them. And they are practicing all the phases in power. And this is the fun part. They're engaged, they're contributing, they're having fun. You're taking their ideas and you're scribing. And pretty soon they start to go ahead of you. No, I want to put my own ideas. And you look and they're all the way in W while you're still in P. And that's when they're telling you we're ready to release. And they do that after about 10 power cycles have been modeled. So it takes about 2 to 3 months to get them to that point. Here's a teacher leading a think aloud where she's showing her students how she thinks while she's writing. So right up at the top. Kindergarten, first grade, the teacher's wearing a POW cape. Gradual release, you notice 3 students were way ahead of you. Okay, go work on your own. And they're at the back table and they're working on their own and they're way ahead of the class. And then they come over with an exemplar, you put it up and you give them critical feedback as a class and they love it. I had a child come up to me in a supermarket with his mom. There's that coach lady who came into my classroom, put my work up. It was so helpful. First graders releasing. Kindergartners releasing with partner rights. One child does have the graphomotor to write, the other one not yet, but they're writing their responses about giraffes. Glimpse into a kindergarten classroom. Teachers are still putting pictures. Here's more pictures, picture planners, dictation, but having this framework. Heading up 3 flights to the middle school. Kids are again working in partners. We learn through talk. They're talking to each other. We have all kinds of scaffolds. Many of these, as I said, are posted free at Think SRSD. There are a whole lot of SRSD sites out there. I encourage you to go to Think SRSD first because we have been federally funded through these grants. So we have the most materials up there that are all free. And our materials have been through research studies and have been, we only put up materials that have been used in schools that have had significant ELA gains. So anything you're using is evidence-based. There are songs, they're posted at our YouTube channel. This is a song for 3rd grade. Here's a teacher singing bingo, T-I-D-E, Tide. These are all posted at our YouTube channel. Here are kids who use Tide to write to City Hall in order to get a new street sign with a heart because they were the only kids in Worcester who didn't have a heart on their street sign. City Hall called them in, said your essays were excellent and we are going to deliver the new sign tomorrow. You cut through all the red tape that's normally there because your essays are so good, we're coming tomorrow. They were very pleased. Writing for
Our
real
voices
purposes.
are our most powerful weapons. One child, one teacher, one book, and one pen. They can change the world.
And I can't say enough about that. As the parent of a child with dyslexia who couldn't get his words out on paper, we have so many children with so many brilliant, amazing ideas who can't get them out. And when we center writing and put that first and foremost in our literacy instruction, we're helping kids to find their voice, find their messages, and communicate them effectively in the world in compelling ways so that they can make the world a better place. Heidi, back to you.
Okay, so the next part of our cycle is setting goals and scoring. So this is so powerful with our students. We're going to move that bicycle journey. There's our map. And we are going to head into the goals and scoring and see what that looks like. So our youngest kiddos love the rockets. We use this in kindergarten and they color code the rockets. They love getting out their color pencils, their crayons, or their markers. So here, if they have a topic sentence, they get to color green. If they have important details, they're coloring the yellow, and the detailed examination, the orange, and the red for the ending. So they can see right away, you know, this is where I started in the fall. And the next time I scored a writing, I had more colors. And then they get to add some stars in the moon for like amazing language, amazing vocabulary. The next step is they move into a scoring checklist. We call it a scoring rubric. So they get points. This is a little hard to see, but you will all get to see this on the website. And then we have detailed directions on how students can score. So once the teacher can model this with the students and they can see great scoring, great pieces of writing, then they can get with peers and score. So that to me was one of the most powerful things when I saw that in my district, is when I would walk into a classroom and peers were scoring And so as a teacher, it took a little bit off my teachers' plates because they didn't have to score every single piece of writing. So that is good. So they start with cold write formative assessments. So we have some of these posted on the website, and we have the scoring charts and things like that. They can see videos, they can listen to the reading, and then they write to the response. And let's do a quick chat. Why would we use cold write formative assessments? Why would we come in I've done this even in some of my classrooms in my district, and I would give a whole first grade. They've never seen any of the tide or anything. We give them a cold write formative assessment. Why would we do that? Go ahead and write that in the chat. We'll see what we come up with. I'm so happy that we have the chat today. Okay, yes, to see where we're starting, it gives a baseline. Yes, absolutely. So thank you for writing those. We want to see, and for a teacher, if the kids already know some of these things, why spend so much time teaching them? As a teacher, this is a great formative assessment. And the next part is for students to set their own goals. So I have the coolest just pictures and things like that from our district where the goals change. We have sticky notes where, say fourth graders wrote goals, but then a month later, they actually could take the sticky note off and have a new goal. Isn't that what we want for our kids? To set their own goals, know where they're going. We're empowering these students. And then we collect those cold write formative assessments, and they have notebooks. This is, from one of our schools. I love the simplicity of, we don't have to purchase anything. These are all things that we're using. Look, our graphs are going up. So these kids will look at each other and say, our graphs are going up. So students set their own goals. We use formative assessments. Here's some in the younger grades with the rockets. We'll just show you a few pictures. So goal setting really leads to that self-talk. So we're going to talk a little bit about self-talk. And this was so powerful. When we do something hard, we know that writing is hard in the brain. We know the juggling act that writing is. When something is hard, we have to talk to our brain and give ourselves positive self-talk. So here are some examples. I will try my best. You've got this. I actually do this all the time now. Leslie, just, being trained in SRSD, self-talk is so important. We know that. We've learned we've seen a lot of brain scans in our conference, but we also have brain scans with SEL type practices. So this is actually a brain in trauma. And we know that when we talk positively in our brain, blood flow changes and we have more that lights up. So we'll simplify it that way. Self-talk, this is an easy chart to put up in your room. What can I say to myself when something's hard? Instead of saying, I'm not good at this, we can say, what am I missing? And again, you'll get all of these slides. We have to show this video, Leslie, because it's short and it's one of my favorites. I'm not sure if our sound, I know I'm not hearing it, but this is on the YouTube channel. And this little guy is saying, wait a second, I'm brave, I'm strong. Okay. So I'm not hearing it. So we'll just go ahead and then he finally jumps in the pool. And he's laughing, and it's just a happy thing to see. It's amazing. Yeah, I'm not sure why the sound. So we want to make sure we self-talk every day. And what I've seen
Sorry, my sound was off. I think it should work now.
Oh, good. We have
to
listen to this. It is too good. It makes us all happy.
Wait a second! I'm brave! I'm strong! God made me strong! I'm gonna jump in this water right now, watch the fall! Okay, I'll do it right now.
I could just listen to that every day. And these are great to show your kids in your classrooms, just to have them see different things and self-talk. This is a quote that I personally love, and I know a lot of other people, John Hattie's work and things like that, but self-efficacy is a belief that one can succeed is the greatest influence on achievement. So thinking that we can move forward. We have students fill out a self-regulation planner. So they actually plan, how am I going to get through this writing? Writing is hard. How am I going to get through this? So we have samples of self-regulation planners. This is a self-talk planner. So that is this is a K-12, so we can see what it looks like in kindergarten, grade 2. We want to talk in grade 12. It looks a little bit different, but they plan out their self-regulation.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. So just to wrap up, we have a power cycle. We read rich, complex texts as high as we can go without causing frustration. Again, my background is special education. My master's is special education. I've been involved with IDA for 30 years, and we want to lift our kids as high as we possibly can without frustration. If they're frustrated, we bring it back a little bit, and then we scaffold getting them there. We also want to show peer exemplars that seem attainable. Read and analyze those. Model, 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 and practice going through the writing process, but that gist work that Heidi talked about, the way that we bring in the Charlie Haynes scaffolded boxes, that is building both reading comprehension of the text. When you have to write a gist, what did I just read? The boy jumped into the pool because it was a hot day. That's their gist. They're putting that into the boxes. They're learning all the parts of speech, and we are extending those boxes in both directions, rightward, leftward, expansion of the sentence. We're working on sentences 5 minutes a day, and we're banishing fragments, run-ons, and we're seeing these incredible elaborations. And then we are going in and practicing the rest of the writing process, but we've done all that work to lift syntax as well. Then we have the reflective piece where the students self-score. This becomes the power cycle. And this is what you want to have your students doing weekly, slowing it down to drive home the skills where you need it, but having your students write weekly. These are the younger grades again. We do this K through 12. It aligns schools beautifully. This is a 0 in on the major parts. But this is the power cycle. Over the year, you'll do power cycles every week. Big power cycles for a full essay, little power cycles weekly. And this works with any curriculum. If you're using CKLA, we have curriculum integration maps. We are building them, and we have a lot finished, and we're happy to share with you. This is free. As Heidi said, the crazy thing is it's free. The federal government has invested millions, tens of millions of dollars, maybe 100, over the past 40 years to research this, and it sat on a shelf for 30 years until they began investing in what we're doing at Think SRSD, which is, okay, how do we adapt it? What pieces do we need to remove and maybe bring back later to get this up and running as easily as possible? And in the past year, we were given a large federal grant to work on curriculum integration. So we pioneered this at Think SRSD, and we can help you. In a nutshell, you want your reading and your writing to connect. So Monday, Tuesday, you're reading, you're doing the P. Wednesday, you're organizing. Thursday, Friday, you're writing and scoring. In the younger grades, you're doing all your foundational skills, and then you're bringing those in and reinforcing them in your collaborative write. The collaborative write is an afterthought. We must teach explicitly right up front all of those foundational skills, letter sound, symbol correspondence, formation, all of that is primary first. Then you're doing your collaborative write to build oral language, and you are reinforcing. It is a second step. You're reinforcing all of your foundational skills when you get to the collaborative write. In the collaborative write, we go back for skills. Did you have all of your capitals and periods? Did you have adverbs? This preempts needing to do all of the worksheets in the high quality instructional materials. You can skip a lot of them if you are reinforcing in your collaborative writes. So that's how we save time to make time for Power and for Think SRSD. Teacher showcase. Here are some teachers. This is from a classroom. Here's a teacher sharing her experience with using this approach. This video is posted at thinksrsd.com. We'll keep going, but I do believe that our nation is at 24% proficient, and we can change that and get to 100% proficient. I have no doubt that of kids who take the tests, we can get them all there. We moved Cumberland Public Schools in Rhode Island from below 40 to 80 and above. We had a school in Rhode Island last year where they had about 10% proficient in one class, high poverty. And now the teacher just got back her scores after 1 year, 47% proficient. And she said to me, I knew something was happening when they were taking RICAS this year because the room was electric and they wrote for 2 or 3 times as long. We can release the genius in our kids and build the skills. To wrap up, power cycles are the trick, and we can make writing easy for our students and ourselves with Think SRSD. Heidi, I have a quick survey. Can I put that into chat, or do you have your?
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple questions too that we could have one of our board members come on and ask, but I'm seeing a bunch of questions come in.
A lot of people are asking for the slides. If you complete this survey, the slides are right at the end. So I am putting this survey into chat, and if you fill it out, you will get the slides at the end.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That was my question. Thank you.
And maybe we could
great
put the
presentation.
survey, we could put the survey up on Whova as well, so that, you know, if someone couldn't attend this session, the survey, Linda, is right in the, Leslie just posted it.
One of the questions that was asked was, can you give an example of the difference between important evidence versus detailed examination?
Yep. Well, Leslie's typing, I can do it. So important evidence, and I always think about yellow. I was a kindergarten teacher, so is right from the text. So even our youngest students are pulling right from the text. And then the detailed examination is from our own thinking. So we know that the Common Core, yeah. So your voice, your analysis.
Then someone wondered if there are state trainings or state partnerships or anything like that, or is this just
And we're always looking for grant partners. We charge as little as humanly possible. We are significantly, almost 10 times cheaper than commercial because we're federally funded and we're evidence-based. So it's a win-win there. But yes, there are all kinds of trainings, and we are hoping to partner with New Hampshire eventually. But let us know if you don't have funding. We do have grant opportunities. Could one of the hosts put the survey link into chat? Maybe because I'm putting it, it's not moving forward to everyone.
That could be.
I just put it back in.
Oh, thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, and I've already been talking to people from our state. I just presented this at the New Hampshire NEA conference a couple weeks ago, and there were a few people from the state, and so I'm in talks. Hopefully we can bring it to New Hampshire and in New England. So Leslie and I had a great time in Tennessee one time. We got to travel to Tennessee.
The survey should be in chat now. So if you want to get the slides, you can go right into the survey and the PDF is there.
Thank you so much. This was so interesting. I know you covered 2 weeks or whatever you said, a week's worth of information, but I think it was a great overview, and I'm sure whet the appetites of many of the attendees.
Yeah, Leslie is in Massachusetts. Someone just said, is she in New Hampshire? But she's nice and close, so that's great.
I'm nearby, and I love coming to New Hampshire.
Thank you so much, both of you, Heidi and Leslie. That was very, very interesting.
Great. Thank you very much.